Preparations are well and truly underway for the 2023 Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. Joining me on the desk is Bruce Gould, who's competed in 40 races, but now you're a volunteer in the radio communications area. Tell me about that role and how it's different.
Well, we've got two boats. JBW, she does one boat, and then we do two radio skids a day. And then I'm on Young Endeavour, which is a backup to the radio, to JBW, so there's two of us. JW tends to try and stay at the front of the fleet, but the big maxis take off and they're hard to stay with. And then we pick up the stragglers at the back so that everyone's got reasonable communication. And then at Green Cape, the skippers have to declare that they're prepared to go across Bass Strait and their crew's happy and everything's shipshape. And if they haven't got an HF radio, they can't go. But this year they're allowing them to use their sat phones, but we still try and get everyone to use their radios because with HF, everyone can hear, whereas the sat phone, it's one-on-one. So from a safety point of view, it's far better if you're on HF.
It's an important role you play, though, as a volunteer out there making sure the fleet get through Bass Strait safely and get to Hobart.
Well, it sure is. I was unfortunate enough to be in the 1989 Sydney Hobart race where we sank, and post that we did a lot of work at the CYC to improve safety. Touch wood, we haven't lost anyone since, and it's an important role to help any yachts that are in distress or have got sick crew or gear failure, help them make sure they get safely back to a safe port.
And it is, as you say, you went from competing in the race and now you play a role in terms of the safety. It must be really important to you given that 1998 tragedy. You lost 3 crew members. Yeah,
it was, it wasn't a very pleasant time, I can tell you. I think, well, I decided to go, I got invited to go race the following year. So I accepted and told my wife I was going, and she said that I knew you would, so I can't remember now, I think 10 more after that tragedy. And then, as you start to get a bit older, you want to put something back into the sport and the club. So I was very happy to volunteer to do some radio sked work so that we keep the fleet safe.
It's the 25th anniversary this year of that 1998 fatal race. How vividly do you remember that day?
Very vividly at times. I think it's more when you get to sea and you're actually out there, and depending what weather you get, you're more conscious of if you get a sou'wester, blowing hard. And I think I'm probably a lot more cautious of looking at weather and conditions. But life goes on and you just got to keep moving. One of the other reasons is I'm happy to volunteer. I've just got an OBE over bloody 80. So, it's one way of staying in touch with the sport, which I love, and had a lot of pleasure out of.
Can you talk me through how you survived that day?
What, the sinking? Well, we went up a huge wave and we never got to the top of it. And it just literally picked us up and drove us down backwards. And tons of water broke on top of us, so it broke every window on the boat and damaged quite a few things. And we're obviously taking on water. We tried to get the motor going to see if we could get the pumps to stand up to it, but in the end we couldn't. And so I was below when it actually happened, so I came on deck and I was a helmsman, so the other guys are wrapped around the backstay, so we had to get them off. And it was pretty obvious to me that we weren't in good condition and that we were going to have to abandon the boat. So I got all the guys on deck to organise to have the life rafts ready to go, put some extra gear on so that we could take extra water and flares. And then finally it just came to the time where I said to the skipper, mate, we've got to get out of here because it's time. And we got into the life rafts. There were 2 life rafts and there was no order of which raft you're in, it was just basically get in. So we got 9 of us off the boat, and when you look at the sea conditions and how hard it was blowing, that was quite an achievement even to get 9 blokes into 2 life rafts. And then after that, my memory's a bit vague, but I think about 2 minutes later the boat sank. So we were lucky to get off and get away from the boat actually sinking. And then it was a case of, we were in a life raft, we're drifting. Nobody heard it. It wasn't until we got our EPIRBs going that they realised that we were in trouble. And unfortunately broke the EPIRB on the aerial, which, meant that they couldn't have contact with us. So I think we were about 30 miles off the coast, and when they picked us up, we were 92 miles to sea, heading to New Zealand. And during the night, we got tipped over by these huge waves, and we realised when you're upside down, we now know you've only got about 8 or 9 minutes of air, so you've got to get the raft back up again, otherwise you'll run out of air. And we were lucky in our raft, we managed to get it back up again and we stayed intact. And unfortunately on the other raft, they put a slit in the floor because they felt that they were more stable upside down. And of course then they got turned over again, and when they got turned over, the raft floor broke, just ripped apart, and they were basically in 2 rings. And what happened after that was a massive sea came in and just plucked 3 of them off the life raft. And there's nothing you can do because you're just drifting and you've got no means of power or anything else, and the rafts drift pretty fast in those conditions. So we were 25 hours on the life raft, and finally there's nothing sweeter than a helicopter hovering overhead, and they managed to pick all 4 of us up and took us back to Malakuta. I don't know, you're too busy just surviving to worry too much about anything else other than staying intact and looking after each other, and if you did turn over, get the raft back up again. And it was a nice feeling when an aeroplane did fly over eventually and dipped its wing to us, so we knew we'd been seen. And then not long after that the helicopter arrived, and we were very relieved to get in the helicopter.
I bet. Well, it's an amazing service you do for your fellow sailors to keep them safe. I know that you're very dedicated to that.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, have a great day on Boxing Day.
Thank you.
And a safe one.